Galadron, once a revered god of ancient times, had been forgotten by mortals and banished to the farthest reaches of the cosmos. His realm, his followers, even his name had faded from memory, lost to the ages. Now he stood at the entrance of the celestial garden, a floating paradise veiled in stardust and light. With each step he took, the ground beneath him pulsed with a life force that seemed to recognize his divinity, yet it was tinged with an eerie calm, a silence that hinted at the challenges to come. The garden stretched endlessly before him, a realm of ethereal beauty where the plants seemed to glow from within, their petals shimmering like galaxies caught in mid-bloom. Creatures of stardust flitted through the air, their forms shifting and changing as they passed, reflecting the celestial hues that permeated the garden. Galadron could feel the weight of his forgotten power lingering in the air, as if the garden itself held fragments of his lost might, waiting to test his worth. He knew that to reclaim even a shadow of his former glory, he must conquer the 12 trials hidden within this cosmic sanctuary. As he ventured deeper, the path before him began to shift, forming a mosaic of light and shadow. It was as if the garden itself was alive, its very essence woven from the remnants of his past. He caught glimpses of his reflection in the swirling mist, brief, haunting flashes of the god he once was, and the desolate figure he had become. Beside him, his companions Sindra and Theska, guardians of forgotten lore, walked in solemn silence. They were his last ties to the divine realm, their loyalty unwavering despite his fall from grace. They moved cautiously, their senses alert to the garden's quiet whispers and sudden flares of cosmic light. Each twist and turn seemed to taunt Galadron with memories of his ancient triumphs, now little more than faded echoes. Yet he could feel the power within the garden, a force both familiar and alien that called to him, urging him to prove himself once more. Sindra's eyes gleamed with a fierce determination, while Theska cast wary glances at the shadows that loomed around them, aware that this journey would test them all in ways they could scarcely imagine. Finally, they reached the heart of the garden, where the first trial awaited. A colossal gate stood before them, carved from stardust and shimmering with 1,000 hues. Galadron felt a surge of anticipation mixed with dread, for he knew that the garden would show no mercy. Each trial would demand a part of him, a piece of his forgotten past, until there was nothing left but the truth that had bound him to this celestial prison. With a final glance at his companions, he stepped forward, ready to face whatever fate had in store. As Galadron stepped through the colossal gate, he felt an intense surge of energy ripple through him, as if the garden itself recognized his presence and sought to test his resolve. The air grew heavy, and the radiant plants around him began to twist and darken, their colors shifting from vibrant hues to ominous shades of red and black. Sindra and Theska moved closer, their faces etched with steely determination, prepared to confront whatever lay ahead. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled, and the first trial materialized, a swirling vortex of stardust out of which emerged a creature forged from forgotten constellations. The beast towered above them, its form constantly shifting as if it were an amalgamation of galaxies and cosmic storms. Galadron raised his hand, summoning a flicker of his lost power, and a radiant sword of pure light took shape. Sindra's staff glowed with an ethereal light, while Theska's shield shimmered with the remnants of ancient runes. The creature lunged at them, and the battle began. The garden pulsed in rhythm with their struggle, as if savouring the clash of divine forces within its sacred bounds. With each strike, Galadron felt a fragment of his former self rekindled, as if the battle was awakening the dormant divinity within him. The creature fought with a ferocity that seemed fueled by the stars themselves, its roars echoing through the garden like thunder across a cosmic sea. Sindra struck with precision, her spells weaving a net of starlight around the beast, while Theska parried its attacks with a grace that belied the weight of her armor. The three of them moved as one, a synchronized force of nature, pushing the creature back with every step. At last, Galadron seized an opening, plunging his sword into the heart of the stardust beast. A blinding flash erupted, and the creature dissolved into a shower of cosmic dust, the remnants drifting back into the garden like falling stars. They had passed the first trial, but Galadron knew that this was only the beginning. The garden seemed to whisper in approval, the plants around them brightening momentarily before dimming once more. There would be many more challenges to face, and each would demand more of them than the last. As they continued deeper into the garden, Galadron felt a growing unease. The path ahead seemed to shift and warp, as if the garden itself sought to confuse and disorient them. Strange creatures watched from the shadows, their eyes glinting with a knowledge that seemed both ancient and foreboding. Sindra glanced at him, her expression one of concern. "The garden tests more than our strength," she murmured. "It tests our very souls." With a nod, Galadron pressed on, aware that each step brought them closer to a fate they could neither foresee nor escape. As they pressed onward, Galadron felt the garden's energy intensify, like a storm gathering on the horizon. They arrived at an immense clearing where stardust formed a swirling barrier around them, rising higher with every step. At the center of the clearing stood a towering figure, a mirror image of Galadron but twisted and darkened, as if shadowed by the weight of forgotten sins. This was his final trial, to face a manifestation of his own lost divinity, a being forged from the remnants of his power. The doppelganger's eyes burned with a fierce, otherworldly light, and it moved with a swiftness that belied its massive form. With a grim nod to his companions, Galadron raised his sword, its radiant glow now dimmed against the dark energy that enveloped his shadowed counterpart. Sindra and Theska prepared themselves, their own weapons shimmering with anticipation. The clash was immediate and brutal, each blow resonating through the garden like a thunderclap as they battled against this dark mirror of their leader. Galadron struggled, feeling the strength of his opponent, his own strength twisted and warped. He could see the faintest glimmers of recognition in the creature's gaze, as though it too remembered what it had once been. Sindra unleashed a wave of starlight, striking the creature and momentarily staggering it. Theska leapt forward, her shield deflecting a brutal counterattack that nearly overwhelmed them. They fought with a synchronized precision, yet the creature seemed to grow stronger, feeding off the very essence of the garden itself. Desperate, Galadron focused his energy, pouring every last fragment of his divine essence into a final, all-encompassing strike. His sword erupted in blinding light, piercing through the creature's form and filling the clearing with an ethereal glow. The shadowed doppelganger let out a final roar, its form shattering into countless fragments of stardust that drifted into the garden. Galadron fell to his knees, exhausted but victorious, as the garden around them pulsed in response, as though recognizing the triumph of its new guardian. Yet, as the dust settled, Galadron felt an unexpected calm wash over him. He understood now. This was his fate. He was not meant to reclaim his former glory, but to take on a new role within the garden itself. The trials had not been a path to redemption, but a transformation, binding him to this celestial realm as its eternal protector. As Sindra and Theska knelt beside him, he could feel the garden's ancient energy entwining with his own, solidifying the bond that would forever tie him to the stars. As the light from the dissipated shadow settled, Galadron felt a profound stillness envelop the garden. The stardust that had once been his doppelganger drifted through the air like gentle snow, settling on the radiant plants and soaking into the earth. He rose slowly, feeling an unusual calm take hold. Sindra and Theska remained close, their expressions a mixture of awe and reverence as they gazed at the ethereal transformation that was taking place around them. The garden itself seemed to exhale, its celestial colours deepening and shifting as though in response to the battle that had just ended. A path unfolded before them, illuminated by a series of floating lights that pulsed in rhythm with Galadron's heartbeat. As he walked forward, he realized that each step was binding him further to this realm. The garden had chosen him, and he could feel its ancient power weaving through his being, filling the void left by his forgotten divinity. Sindra placed a hand on his shoulder, her gaze filled with understanding. "The garden has claimed you, Galadron," she said softly. "You are now its eternal guardian, the protector of this celestial realm." He nodded, a sense of acceptance washing over him. This was not the path he had envisioned, but it was one that resonated deeply within him. Theska gave a solemn nod, recognizing that their journey together had transformed into something far beyond their original quest. As they ventured further, Galadron saw visions of his past reflected in the garden's shimmering pools. Faces of those he had once known, glimpses of battles fought and victories won. Now all part of the garden's tapestry. The garden had not just accepted him, it had become his new existence, his essence forever entwined with its cosmic beauty. Each vision served as a reminder of what he once was and what he had now become. They arrived at the center of the garden, where a throne of stardust awaited. Galadron felt the pull of destiny drawing him to the seat, and as he took his place, the garden surged with a radiant energy that enveloped him and his companions. Sindra and Theska bowed, acknowledging his new role as the eternal guardian. Galadron looked out over the garden, knowing that he would protect this realm until the end of time. He was no longer the forgotten god, he was the guardian, bound forever to the stars. Seated on his stardust throne, Galadron felt a deep sense of peace settle over him, an acceptance of his new role that transcended even the memories of his former divinity. The garden pulsed with a steady rhythm, in sync with his own heartbeat, as if acknowledging him as its eternal protector. This was his destiny now, to remain forever bound to the stars, watching over this celestial realm with a vigilance born from his trials and triumphs. Sindra and Theska stood beside him, their loyalty unwavering as they took their places as guardians within the garden. They had journeyed far, and while Galadron's path had changed in ways none of them could have foreseen, they knew their bond was now unbreakable. Together, they would uphold the balance of this cosmic realm, ensuring that its secrets remained hidden from those unworthy of its power. The garden, in turn, seemed to embrace them, its celestial beauty weaving around their forms like a protective shroud. The stardust that had once been a symbol of their trials now became part of them, flowing through their veins and solidifying their connection to this enchanted place. They were no longer just travelers or adventurers. They were part of the garden's very essence, forever entwined with its eternal cycle. As Galadron gazed out over the garden, he saw beyond its immediate beauty to the far reaches of the cosmos, feeling an immense sense of purpose. He understood now that his journey had never been about reclaiming lost power, but about finding a new kind of strength, one that lay in protection rather than dominion. He was not simply a god anymore. He was the garden's chosen guardian, and with that came a responsibility as vast as the stars. The celestial garden shimmered with newfound radiance, as if rejoicing in the fulfillment of a prophecy long forgotten. Galadron felt the weight of his duties settle upon him, a mantle he would carry for eternity. As the stardust swirled around him and his companions, they became one with the garden, their forms fading into the cosmic mist. They would remain here, watching over this sacred realm until the end of time, bound to the stars and to each other forevermore.